Ken here, your thrifty apprentice. Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome back to another Water Soluble Wednesday. Today we have ourselves another good old-fashioned Temu Art Series product review where we will be unboxing, swatching, demoing, and reviewing a Temu art product. Now, if you guys remember from the Temu art haul video, there were 4 watercolor palettes I ordered, and we are about to take on palette number 3. We've already done the DDD Praise, we've done the Meeting, which you guys can go back and check out those reviews if you would like to. And today we are looking at Artis Decor Watercolors, and that is the only name I could come up with because that is the only information that is truly on the box as far as name branding is concerned. So let's just go ahead and jump into this. We have a 12 color watercolor palette here. It says Watercolor Artis Decor, and color is spelled in the European way of spelling watercolor, so obvious that this was not produced by an American company. The side pretty much says the same thing all the way around, and flipping it over on the back, you're going to get Watercolor Artis Decor, 12 colors. Looks like it has an image of 2 water brushes in here, and then there are instructions written in a foreign language on basically how to feel the water brush, but there's also pictures to show you as well. So and then it says 12 colors, and that is all of the information on the packaging. Let's crack this open, see what we have here. It's a pretty flimsy box. The packaging is, you know, it's a very economical, and I do mean super economical. If I'm not mistaken, it was like $5, maybe $6. So I wasn't expecting much, but you just have a basic cardboard box for the packaging. And then we have a plastic palette, which reminds me a lot of the Derwent Graphic Tint palette, that pan palette from Derwent. But this one is definitely much more economical in its make. You can tell just from holding it. It's super light. Let's see. Unlatches from the front there. Seems to latch pretty well. Won't come open. You have a ring on the back to hold if you're doing plein air out on the go. Pretty cool. I never use them, but it's there. I mean, it's a light palette, but it seems pretty sturdily made. Let's see here. We have 5 mixing wells, 2 large, 3 small ones at the top for painting. It's a little travel palette, painting on the go. You're gonna get 12 watercolors, look to be half pan, in a molded plastic insert, along with 1 water brush, which the back of the box showed 2, but there's 1 in here, and there's only enough room for 1, so I'm not sure why it shows 2 on the box. And then of course there's a sponge for cleaning your water brush on the go. Pretty straightforward. That's removable. You could reuse this for something else if you didn't like the paints that's in there. And I'm assuming just from flipping it over, they're glued in, so you could pop one out. Let's see if I can get it out without damaging anything. Okay. I mean, yeah, you could pop them out of there, and then put that down for a second. And let's see if we can get that plastic in place. Yeah, you could definitely feel that if you wanted to. I mean, it converted into a little travel palette for yourself. As you can see, it's a standard half pan. Definitely machine cut. They're super bright, so there's no doubt that there's fillers in here, and they're definitely dye-based because just the sweat, or should I say the perspiration from my hand, has caused the color to release a little bit. I'm gonna assume that they're filled with fillers and brighteners because I can actually tell which each one of these colors are supposed to be from simply looking at it. And typically when you get a super transparent watercolor that is pigment filled, some of the colors, especially the earth tones, are so dark you would never be able to look at them and tell right away what they are. So there we have that. Pretty straightforward, not a lot to it. Let's see, maybe we'll use the water brush in the demo. Looks like a pretty standard water brush, like a shorter form of the one that you could possibly get from like the Dollar Tree. I'm gonna say that that's a medium to large brush on it. Some of the hairs. It's nylon fibers, just so you'll know. And it's got sizing in it, so it needs to be washed out. Let's see, I got some water here. Let's get that washed out. Yeah, nylon bristles, pretty cool. I mean, standard. I have 1 million of these. So I'll set that to the side. So guys, yeah, there we have that. I've already prepared the swatch sheet for us to jump into. You can see I've stamped it originally. And this is the Strathmore Visual Journal, 140-pound cold pressed acid-free paper. This is their 400 series paper, which is the one that comes in the brown cover, ironically enough. Do I have one here? I think I do. So this is their 400 series paper. They just have it in what's known as a visual journal. This is one of my top recommended student grade budget papers. It's really, really good. I definitely prefer it over the Strathmore in the yellow cover or over like Canson or anything like that. So I'm going to swatch these. I am going to speed the swatching out up. We have a lot to get through. So I'll swatch them, I'll glaze them, we'll do some color mixing. We'll come back and talk about that for just a few seconds on how that experience was, and then we'll jump into a demo and then move on to a review. As we jumping into the swatching, I am using started off using the actual water brush. It was feeding water a little bit too fast for me, and as I showed you there, I know it was moving kind of fast. It stained right away. I switched over to a flat synthetic golden Tecline brush from Master's Touch, and I'm just using it to water down the paints and do the first watery layer of the swatch. The paints actually re-wet really well, ironically enough. It just took the smallest tap of the brush and you could pick up a lot of pigment from it. So that was definitely something to take note of. The colors were pretty vibrant, even in a watered down wash. And then I decided that, hey, you know, I need to definitely test these for opacity because I forgot to do it in the actual swatching. So I did it while I was doing the color mixing. Now here I'm mixing the red and the, what would be the lemon yellow together, and then the lemon yellow in, at first I thought it was ultramarine blue, but I really think it's phthalo blue. And here I'm mixing oranges and greens and purples. And then I mixed the green that was in there, which probably ended up, it's probably Viridian if I just had to guess. And then I mixed the black, gray from the burnt sienna or the brown color. I'm just calling it burnt sienna, burnt umber maybe. And then the phthalo blue, which is what I believe that color is. I don't think it's ultramarine. I decided to glaze just to see how the mass tone would look beside the water tone. And they seem to glaze and layer pretty well without any issues. And they seem to stay a little transparent, which was really, really surprising. Now here I'm jumping in and doing a salt test. So I'm going to put down a really watery layer with heavy pigment. And then to this side, I'm going to put down some paint so that we can do a lift test, which we will be doing shortly. Now I'm going to show you the bucket and we will move on with the video. That water's a little dirty there, don't you guys think? Just for swatching. Swatching didn't go too bad. That wasn't actually too bad. These paints actually remind me right off the bat a lot of the DDD Praise paints, which is the first 12 palette watercolor set that we have reviewed from Temu. So, and I did link it earlier in the video, so you guys can go check that card out. So I'm not going to get into, we're saving all of the major thoughts for the review. Just kind of want to give that preliminary thought. They painted out okay. As I expected, they definitely have a lot of fillers and brighteners in them. Did a couple of different tests here with them. Let me go ahead and do that lifting part. That way when we get to the review, we can go straight through because it won't take long. So I'm just going to grab my number 8 scrubber, Royal and Lang nickel, part of their Menta line. Love this brush. Oh, it lifted out right away. Interesting. And I did do a color gradient there just so we can see. Oh, that's pretty awesome. I don't know if it's the paper or the paints, but that's pretty awesome. that all of those lifted and some of that was mixed. Okay. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, just depending on the situation you're in. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into doing the demo, and then we're going to come right back after that for the review. So I found a reference photo online to paint. I'm not sure if it was royalty free, so I'm not going to be displaying it, but you guys can just kind of draw out your composition if you want to do this from what you see on the screen. I am going to be using the water brush a little, but I'll be honest, I did switch brushes 2 or 3 times. Simply in order to help myself with my water control. I'm starting with the sky, and I started with the lightest of the blue. If I had to guess, it's supposed to be a mimic of like a sky blue, maybe a cerulean. It definitely has a lot of white pigment or chalk mixed into it. But I used it to bring it all the way down to the horizon, and then I went back in at the very top with the phthalo bluish color in order to add more definition to the top of the sky. Remember, when you're doing the sky, you want to keep your darkest color at the top, making it light as you gradient and transition down. And from there, I jumped down to doing the water using the exact same 2 blues, pretty much doing the same technique, but I did wet the water first. I'm trying to keep it soft. I want the background, like the sky, the water behind the glass ball in the mountain, to sort of be kind of soft in color and pigment, look blended, which is why I didn't do the water like I normally do it. As you can see, it looks a lot more still, or like it's still versus moving, as it does in most of my landscape paintings. Now, this is not going to be some type of miracle masterpiece painting. It's just simply for me to test these paints and be able to offer a review. I mean, when it comes down to budget paints of this sort, you pretty much get what you get. If you've used one, you use them all. I did want to get a quick painting in after the swatching in order to see if there was some different little nuances about this particular paint set that I found really exciting or that jumped out at me, especially for the budget price of $5.96. I mean, come on, can't really beat that. So there I was kind of showing you how much water I had already used out of the brush in the time that I was doing the sky and the water. And then, of course, I went in and did the water inside the glass ball sitting on, this is a table. Now, the table I'm going to paint gray. So I mixed the phthalo blue and the brown color, which is somewhere between burnt sienna and burnt umber together until I got a dark tone. I did notice that they separated a little bit, so I did have to mix them really, really well in order to get it to stay in a mass tone, but it worked well for me to paint in a watery wash on the table in order to give it sort of a gray wood feel. Then I took what was, I'm assuming, supposed to be the yellow ochre in the set. It was really more like a golden yellow or a golden ochre or something of that color, that nature, I'm sorry. And I mixed it with the phthalo blue until I got the green tone that I wanted, and then I used it to paint in the mountains in the distant background as well as the mountain inside the glass ball itself. Now, I was actually having fun with this. Of course, you guys know that I've been working a lot lately on painting like glass items, and I wanted to include that in this little demo without making it like a vase or a drinking glass or a cocktail or a shot glass. So I thought to myself, once I ran across this reference photo, that this would be a really different play on glass, and it would kind of push me, considering the fact that I was painting fast and I wanted to see what I could get painted without putting too much effort into it. Next, I took just, a little bit more of the gray. This time I mixed it with much less water in it, and I'm going in to define the planks of the wood, the outline of the wood. I'm defining the outline of the glass ball. Now, maybe you would consider it a clear marble, or someone told me that it kind of looked like the lens of a telescope. I thought that was kind of funny. And I didn't make that circle complete there, so you'll see that I'm going to go in and kind of fill it in with a little bit more of the dark color to the far right side of that glass ball, which actually made it look a little thicker to me, which worked well. Wasn't what I intended, but, I was able to go with it. I mean, again, it's just a little demo painting for some cheap paints. Now, here I've grabbed a fan brush. Now, if you did not know, this is a wonderful technique to use in order to add like the wood grain detailing to wood if you were painting wood. So I used that gray in a watery wash. And then I started to layer that with washes that had less water, just to build opacity and to build those strides that would be in the wood that actually add the texture to make it look like it's wood. And that is a wonderful technique, and it works well every single time. Now I'm just watering down that gray tone again, and I'm going in and painting in reflections up under the little mountain mass into the water. Just to give it a little bit more body, a little bit more realness. Although it was really simple, I did want to try my best to add all of the elements that needed to be there. So I did the same thing with the mountain in the ball. And now I'm adding an additional element by throwing in birds, which I hadn't intended to, but you guys know how I am when it comes to landscapes. So the birds made it into the background, and then of course they have to kind of reflect or mirror themselves inside the glass ball. So I just put them in there sort of in the same position. I'm signing, and I'm going to outline as I normally do, so that I'll have a black border standing against the white border of the paper once I remove the tape. Then I thought to myself, you know what? These are planks. Let's throw in some nails. So I put a nail into every other plank of wood. And then I'm going back in with a gray tone I mixed again. And I am just going to paint that black. So you're going to paint it in more of a mass tone with less water, just to kind of make it look like maybe there are some nails there. I'm going to eventually hit that with some with a white gel pen in order to add some shadow. Now here I'm removing the tape, just to see what I had to work with and if I needed to add anything else. And then I thought to myself, okay, I need bleed proof in order to add my final details. So I jumped in and I added a water line to the mountains in the back. And of course, I'm going to bring a few ripples down throughout the water. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing inside the glass ball, because again, it would be reflecting what was going on around it. I really think this is fun. If you guys remember, I painted a landscape inside of a wine goblet or a goblet a couple of days ago, and it was really fun. So yeah, guys, that pretty much is going to bring us to an end of what I did with the demo. I'm going to add on the brightest highlights just to show some light reflection from the day. And that is pretty much going to wrap it up. Let's jump into the review. You know, guys, I'll have to admit that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Forgive any noise you hear in the background. My air conditioner just came on and it may be a little loud. Let's go ahead and jump into this review right quick so we can wrap this on up. Let's take a look really quickly. Let's go back to our swatch sheet here. Now, the first thing I did was to swatch them out in a watery layer. Then I went back and glazed the mass tone. I forgot to put down my little black line in order to check opacity, so I did that to the side, and then also did my color mixing on that black line. For the most part, as you guys can see, that paint is actually pretty transparent. But because it's transparent and it is so bright and vibrant, without a doubt, I would have to say that these are dye-based. There's definitely dyes all throughout. Now, they mixed pretty cleanly, and you are going to get some really bright and vibrant colors, regular mass tones, as well as mixing them together. I didn't experience any mud. I was able to get a gray tone to black from mixing what I believe is phthalo, their phthalo blue, or should be phthalo blue. That's the color it reminds me of. And then the brown here, which leans a little bit more towards burnt umber, not quite a burnt sienna. Maybe that's what they intended for it to be, or maybe it's just a natural brown. So no problem with the mixing or the glazing. They lift pretty well, as you guys remember seeing. I'm really surprised at how well they actually lifted, considering the fact that I think that they're dye-based and they really didn't do too much staining of the paper. They reacted pretty well to salt, as most paints normally do, but here you can see you can get some great effects. Snow, sand, all of those different type of things. Frost on a glass, I could see it being used in that. Oh, that might be neat to use that effect as frost on a glass. So the preliminary tests for everything seemed to turn out pretty well. And as I said earlier in the video, they really remind me a lot of, let's see here. Where is here? The DDD Praise. Now, it's been quite some time since we did these, and I do believe that these were a little bit more goopy and gloopy than the Artis Decor paints are. And there was quite a bit of shifting between wet and dry on these. However, there's not much of a shift at all. Now, of course, it's only been a few hours since I did this. I'm not sure how they'll look in a couple of days, but for what, $5-6 paints, that's not too bad. Let's take a look at the paints now. As you can see, there wasn't much beating up of the paint on the palette. The palette itself, although it's pretty thin, is actually pretty decent. The paints do contain or retain sort of a semi-moist, indented texture once they've been wet and used. It almost put me in the mind of Superior paints, if the truth be told. But I don't believe that Superior paints has this many dyes in it. I use it on a regular basis. And of course, these don't contain any names or any light fast or any pigment information. Pigment information probably won't get because they're dye-based, such a cheap set. I wouldn't expect them to be light fast considering what I paid for them by any means. But with that said, I don't see why they couldn't be used in like sketchbook work. I can see them being a pretty decent set for beginners. I can see them being a pretty decent set for like card makers or journalers. If you're doing some journaling and you want, like junk journaling especially. If you're doing art journaling and you're going to keep it closed up inside the journal without exposing it, I could see it be used in that aspect. Definitely no commission work, nothing that I would be doing that I'm going to give to somebody as a gift or sale or anything like that. But I do not see why they couldn't be used for practice. As a matter of fact, if I had to put them up against the paints that we have tested from the Temu art haul so far, starting with the DDD Praise. Hopefully that's all been on screen and you guys have been able to see that. Starting with the DDD Praise, which I definitely think they are much better, much brighter than these. They do remind me a little bit of each other, the way they paint out, but I would have to say, just based on the use, that the Artis Decor paints are better than the DD Praise was. And they definitely have more pigment and saturation than the Meeden paints. Now, keeping in mind that these Meeden paints that came from Temu are only sold in the Asian market. I was not able to find a 24 half pan set in the American market anyway. You do get a large variety of colors and they are pretty transparent for what it's worth. Not a huge shift from wet to dry. And there are so much more colors. However, I think that the saturation of the colors from the Artis Decor are better than the Meeden as well. So if I had to rank them in order based on the Temu paints we've tried so far, I'd say I have to put these at number 1, guys. I really would. Not a bad buy. Not a bad buy. The paints cost $5.96 to be exact, plus tax. And of course, Temu doesn't charge any shipping. So 12 colors, pretty bright and vibrant, not a huge shift. $5.96 plus tax, not a bad buy at all, especially if you're considering this to be like for a beginner painter or maybe even for kids. Now, the information did not say that they were non-toxic, but everything in me believes that they are. I don't believe that there are any true pigments being used in here that can harm anybody. Of course, don't eat your paint, but I don't see why kids couldn't use them. The water brush is pretty handy. It does have a continuous flow coming out of it. Now, the bristles stained really quickly, but I have experienced that with a lot of brushes. There wasn't a gush. When you squeeze, the barrel is pretty responsive. You get a pretty decent amount of water with one squeeze. And I do like the fact that unlike a lot of other brush heads, this one seems to be a little medium to large versus small to large. So, I mean, versus small to medium, excuse me. So, you know, decent water brush, pretty standard. I like the fact that it's short and easy to handle, especially for traveling. I could see these being used in plein air painting. Let's take a look at what I did with the paints as we wrap up. I wanted to do something really simple, keep it kind of straightforward, maybe an illustration that you guys could follow along with and practice if you decided to. So just sort of a kind of light background to make sure that it stays pushed back, and then a glass ball here. Not the best glass I've painted if you guys been watching me, but for the overall effect, I think it worked pretty well. I was able to water the paints down to get lighter shades. I'm able to use them in a little bit more mass tone with less water in order to get darker saturated shades. Love the fact that I was able to mix those grays and darken it up to be black as well. So overall, pretty good. Lifted out for clouds there. Yeah, guys, for what they were worth, for what I paid and where they came from, I'm not going to down the paints at all. I'm really not. If you happen to be on Temu and you're running across paints to buy, you want to grab something as a gift to drop in a stocking during Christmas, you want to grab something to give to a kid that's interested in watercolors, or if you are an adult and you're beginning and you want to set to kind of practice and get your feet wet before you go out and spend money on like a legacy student grade set or on a professional set, I don't see why these would be a bad place to start. So there you have it, guys. Really quick, really straightforward. Hopefully I was able to give you as much information as needed to make an informed decision about whether this will be something that you would ever decide to get if you ran across it. Of course, if you have paints, there's no sense in going and paying or buying these, but hey, like I said, great gift idea. All right, guys, there you have it. If you heard, saw, liked anything in this video, or just enjoyed hanging out, going through another Temu product, please give the video a thumbs up. Come on, guys, give the videos a thumbs up. Come on, give it up. Please remember that sharing is caring. Share the video. Maybe someone else out there would love to see it. If you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, or if you're a returning viewer and haven't subscribed, go ahead, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell. This is an all-inclusive art channel and craft channel. We do arts and craft, watercolor, all types of water-soluble products, alcohol markers, and pastels and watercolor crayons and color pencils. So this is an all-inclusive art channel, guys. So do always keep that in mind. You can hit the video description up for all of the relevant links. You're going to find the Facebook group link where we do all things artsy and crafty, and all artists and crafters are welcome. You're going to find the link for the Etsy shop, which is uploaded and updated as I get things done. There's Patreon. Check out the Patreon link, guys. Membership is not expensive. It's a great way to support the channel and make sure that I can continue to do things like this and bring you this type of content. And it has a lot of perks, including its own behind the scene mini series that is exclusive to Patreon. You can also check out the link for the most recommended products, where you're going to get good to great quality products at a very budget friendly price. Keep in mind that some of the links that are included in videos are affiliate links, and I do like to disclose that up front. And I also add, before I sign off, please keep in mind that anything that I say or give you in a review is all based on my experience, my use of the product, and my opinion. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you back here on Friday. And until then, remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, just keep painting and crafting.